The gripping story of Pegasus Bridge has stood the test of time. It is a poignant reminder of the immense contribution of the British forces on D-Day. I've been to the D-Day landing beaches in Normandy many times over the years, leading groups but also making films. This is the story of Pegasus Bridge, one of the most famous events that took place on that day, June the 6th, 1944. I hope you enjoy it. D-Day was the largest amphibious assault in history. 150,000 men and 50,000 vehicles were landed along a 50-mile stretch of coast by 4,000 landing craft, supported by 3,000 warships and 12,000 warplanes, equivalent in scale to transporting a medium-sized city 100 miles across the sea in one day in complete secrecy. Political and military leaders alike feared and even predicted a catastrophe. The man in charge of it all was General Dwight D. Eisenhower. He would later become the 34th President of the United States of America. He had two press releases written for the world's media. The one taking personal responsibility for the appalling loss of tens of thousands of young lives was never read out. D-Day was a stunning success, thanks in the main to the many individual stories of heroism. The task of the British 6th Airborne Division was to seize and hold the eastern flank of the invasion. To do that, they needed to capture that bridge intact and hold it until relieved. The mission was carried out by 180 men of the Ox and Bucks Light Infantry 2nd Battalion under the leadership of Major John Howard. The story is legendary. As the future of the entire free world hung so desperately in the balance, 6 Halifax bombers, each towing a Horsa glider, departed RAF Tarrant Rushden in Dorset. As they crossed the occupied French coastline, the gliders were released and the Halifaxes went on to bomb the city of Caen as a diversion. There's no sophisticated way to bring a Horsa glider down, and even before the action started, the men on board were in grave danger of serious injury or even death. The parachutes at the rear of the gliders were deployed, but they still came down at 100 miles an hour, skidding on the mud. So hope you're enjoying the video. The links to the others in this series are in the comments below. And if you want to hear more from me, you know what to do. The 4 glider pilots landed within 50 yards of the target. It was an example of stunning precision flying and one of those heroic contributions that day that is so often airbrushed out of the story. Den Brotheridge led the first attack onto the bridge, firing from the hip, but was shot through the neck halfway across. He was just an ordinary lad like all the others in his 20s, a very talented footballer who'd signed for Aston Villa before the war. He had a daughter who was born 2 weeks after D-Day. He never saw her. Brotheridge became the first fatality on D-Day. After a fierce 10-minute firefight, the bridge was under Allied control. It was all over by 12:26 a.m, 6 hours before the landings on the beaches, and only 90 minutes after the gliders left RAF Tarrant Rushden back in England. In honour of the British 6th Airborne Division and their flying horse emblem, the bridge was renamed Pegasus Bridge. Many of the heroes that day carried with them a small pocket Bible in their uniform. I guess when the bullets are flying and the mortars are exploding, it rather focuses the mind somewhat on the big questions of life, whatever side you're fighting for. On the far side of the bridge is the Gondrée Café that is still owned by the same family that owned it on D-Day. It was quickly turned into a field hospital to care for Den Brotheridge and then for other paratroopers who were caught up in the battle. It's now a living memorial to the British 6th Airborne Division and also a place of personal pilgrimage. Every year on June the 6th since 1944, the veterans have returned in ever decreasing numbers to remember the days when they were young men in uniform and to honour the fallen. Pegasus Bridge and the Gondrée Café epitomise the immense contribution of the British forces on D-Day.